Hey everyone, Paul Stankista here, candidate for Pennsylvania State Senate. And today I want to show you my most prized possession in the entire world. My McDonald's Employee of the Month plaque, which I earned when I worked there when I was in high school. Now, did they misspell my name? Yes, yes they did. But other than that, it is a masterpiece, and I've hung it in a position of honor everywhere that I've lived since. Because I earned this thing with my blood, sweat, and tears. I had people hurl McFlurries as hard as they could at my head, cuss me out, you name it. This was kind of a chaotic place. And I was scared, but by God, it made me the man I am today. Seeing that plaque on my wall inspired me to come relive my glory days under the Golden Arches. And I always used to prefer their breakfast over their lunch. And I would try my best to take my break before they stopped serving, which is actually pretty soon, so I better run. We got it in the nick of time. The good stuff. Now, I was obviously making minimum wage when I was working there, $7.25 an hour. And I left that job in 2013 to go to college. And now, 13 years later, they're still making the minimum wage of $7.25 an hour. It's a joke. Honestly, pretty good. Pretty good. Since the federal minimum wage was raised to $7.25 an hour in 2009, every single one of Pennsylvania's neighbors has raised it. The last two holdouts were Maryland and West Virginia. In 2014, for over a decade, Pennsylvania has stood alone in undermining not just minimum wage workers, but all low and middle earning workers whose wages are artificially depressed by a low floor. And it's not like we're surrounded by deep blue liberal sanctuaries. Ohio and West Virginia have both been controlled by Republicans completely for decades. I will say, the muffin could be crunchier. It's a little soggy. And many states, including neighboring Ohio, New Jersey, and New York, index their minimum wage to inflation to make sure that workers get an annual raise just to keep up with the economy. Not in Pennsylvania. If we had indexed our minimum wage to inflation back in 2009, it would be nearly $12 now. And our lawmakers are intimately aware that inflation can depress your take-home pay because they index their own pay to inflation. And just to put it in perspective, the incumbent state senator in this district, Senator Fontana, has seen a 40% increase in his take-home pay in the past dozen years, at the same time that minimum wage workers have seen a 0% increase. Honestly, as far as fast food goes, I'd rate this an 8. It's pretty good. I would take an 8. And by the way, raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour, which is what we should do, wouldn't just help those who are making $15 an hour and less right now. It would help just as many people making over $15 an hour because of the raising of the floor, right? It would put an upward pressure on everybody's wages. A report last year by the Keystone Research Center found that 460,000 people are currently making below $15 an hour and would be directly affected. But 406,000 people earning more than $15 an hour would see their wages rise as an indirect effect of raising the minimum wage. In all, that is more than 15% of the workforce that would be helped by this legislation that is a decade and a half overdue. What was a bird? What is that, a cardinal? Another report last year by the Keystone Research Center found that the bottom 10th percentile of workers would earn $16,300 more than they are today if our state legislature finally took action. That is life-changing money. In the aggregate, low-wage earners have earned $10 billion less in Pennsylvania in the past 10 years alone because of our state leaders' inaction. All right, the last bite. Now, if I did this right, if I timed it out correctly, this is the best bite. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Democrats in the State House of Representatives have been doing their part. In both of the last 2 sessions, they've passed bills that would raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour, only for both bills to go to the state Senate and die without a vote. There's actually Republican support in the state Senate for raising the minimum wage. One Republican state senator has been introducing bills to raise it to $15 an hour for several years, and he's likely not the only one of his colleagues who supports this issue. They have to go home to their districts too and justify their jobs. It is the job of Democrats in the state Senate to build a coalition of support around these issues that are essential for our lower wage earners in our community. But they simply haven't done so. And blaming the partisan divided government might be convincing for a year or two or 3 or 4, but after 17 years at $7.25 an hour, we need results, not excuses. And I understand it is a hard job, but just because it's a hard job doesn't mean that you don't have to do it. If you can't do your job successfully for 17 years, I don't care how hard it is, it's time to step aside and let somebody else give it a shot. And that's why I'm running for state Senate, because I want to do that hard work and finally deliver for our community here at home what we desperately need: a raise.